I know this video is not even started yet, but we've been tweeting a lot about this lately, with live explainers and updates. So if you want that for this story and others, we're at TLDR News UK. In recent weeks, a scandal has arisen around Owen Paterson, a Tory MP accused of breaking the parliamentary code of conduct. What's remarkable about this is that despite an independent investigation recommending the suspension of Paterson, Prime Minister Johnson has actually given him his support and is trying to stop the suspension. So let's discuss what's happening right now. The story starts back in October 2019, when allegations emerged that Owen Paterson, the Conservative MP for North Shropshire, had lobbied for two companies as a paid consultant: Randox, a clinical diagnostics company, and Lynn's Country Foods. In light of the reports, the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, Catherine Stone, opened up an investigation, as MPs are, under the Parliamentary Code of Conduct, explicitly banned from acting as a paid advocate in any proceeding of the House. Anyway, during her investigation, Stone found that Paterson had committed 3 wrongdoings. The first was the Code of Conduct on paid advocacy, the second was the breach of the requirement to declare financial interests, and the third was the improper use of parliamentary facilities. Let's run through those quickly. The Commissioner found that Paterson had made 3 approaches to the Food Standards Agency on behalf of Randox, and 7 approaches, again to the FSA, on behalf of Lynn's Country Foods, as well as a further 4 approaches to ministers at the Department for International Development on behalf of Randox. Paterson also failed to declare his interests as a paid consultant to Lynn's Country Food in 4 separate emails to officials at the Food Standards Agency, something which is in direct breach of the MP's Code of Conduct. Finally, the Commissioner also found that Paterson had used his parliamentary office on 25 separate occasions for business meetings with clients, although that figure was revised down by the committee to 16 after Paterson provided further evidence to the committee. Once the Commissioner had concluded her findings, it was then passed to the Parliamentary Standards Committee, a cross-party committee headed up by Chris Bryant. The committee broadly agreed with the Commissioner's findings, adding that while there was no immediate financial benefit secured by Randox or Lynn's, Paterson's approaches could clearly have conferred significant benefits on both in the long term. So that's settled, right? He broke parliamentary code. Well, it gets a little more complicated, as Paterson argued that his approaches fell within the serious wrong exemption. That exemption states that the lobbying rules don't apply where a minister has evidence of serious wrong or substantial injustice. The committee basically rubbished this, stating that it stretches credulity to suggest that 14 approaches to ministers and public officials were all attempts to avert serious wrong rather than to favour Randox and Lynn's. However, Paterson may have persuaded himself that he is in the right. Paterson has been quite outspoken about the committee's findings, stating that I am not guilty and a fair process would exonerate me. In the end, though, the Cross-Party Standards Committee recommended that in line with previous cases of similar severity, he be suspended from the House for 30 sitting days, matching the longest suspension of an MP recommended by the Standards Committee since 1949. And this is where the story starts to pick up steam, because the committee itself has very little power to actually suspend an MP. For that to happen, a motion must be passed by the Commons. The motion in this case is pretty clear, and states that the House approves the 3rd report of the Committee on Standards, endorses the recommendation in paragraph 212, and accordingly suspends Owen Paterson for a period of 30 sitting days. 30 days is significant too, because the Recall of MPs Act 2015 states that a suspension of this length will open Paterson up to face a recall petition. This would basically mean all of his constituents would be sent a letter asking if they wanted to recall him, and if 10% of them said yes, then Paterson would lose his seat and have to fight a by-election. Nonetheless, this procedure is actually unlikely to force Paterson out, as he already has a 22,000 majority in his seat. Anyway, 2 amendments to the motion were put forward, one by Andrea Leadsom and another by Dr. Julian Lewis. The latter motion prevents Paterson's suspension, resolving on compassionate grounds that no further action be taken, in the light of the fact that Paterson sadly lost his wife during the course of the investigation. Paterson himself claimed that the 2-year-long investigation contributed to his wife's suicide. Ledson's amendment is, in any case, far more consequential, complaining about potential defects in the standards system, and therefore refusing to consider the report at this time. Essentially, saying that MPs can't consider the motion right now because they don't like the current system. It then goes on to state that a new select committee should be appointed to make recommendations about the current standards system, and whether the current configuration and powers of the Standards Committee are consistent with the principles of natural justice. The amendment explicitly states that the committee is to be headed up by John Whittingdale, supported by 4 backbench Conservatives, 3 Labour and 1 SNP MP. As this proposed committee would have a Conservative majority, it could make changes to the Standards Committee and exonerate Paterson purely on party lines. It's therefore been accused that these amendments take unprecedented steps to protect an MP, and it is true that the Commons have never reduced a suspension term before. As Angela Rayner raised at PMQs, the opposition see this as a major issue.
The independent standards process found that a member broke the rules on paid lobbying. Surely the Prime Minister accepts that this is and should be a serious offence. Yet we have seen reports that he will respond by scrapping the independent process and overturning its verdict. In no other profession in our country could someone be found guilty by an independent process and just have their mates vote them back into the job. Surely.
No, Mr. Speaker, of course we're not going to do that, because paid lobbying, Mr. Speaker, is wrong. Members who are found guilty of that should apologise and pay the necessary penalties, Mr. Speaker. But that is not the issue in this case or this vote that is before us today. It is not. The issue in this case, which involved a serious family tragedy, Mr. Speaker, is whether a member of this House had a fair opportunity to make representations in this case, and whether, as a matter of natural justice, our procedures in this House allow for proper appeal, Mr. Speaker. And that I think is something that should be of interest to members across this House.
When a Conservative member was found guilty of sexual harassment but let off on a loophole, they said the rules couldn't be changed after the event. So they can't change the rules to stop sexual harassment, but they can change the rules to allow cash for access. So why is the Prime Minister making it up as he goes along? When they break the rules, Mr. Speaker, they just remake the rules.
Johnson's logic about changing the process isn't unreasonable. Changes to the process can obviously be debated, but it does look a little suspicious when these changes are being applied retroactively to defend a party's own MP. Now, Johnson, Leadsom and some others have defended this strategy, saying that the vote isn't about Paterson, but rather an honest attempt to make the process of reviewing MPs' actions more fair. The problem is that this amendment is quite literally attached to a live case, with Paterson's name and sentence all over it. It's impossible to separate the two, as the amendment effectively neuters almost all elements of the original motion, delaying the process to defend their MP. If they did want to make changes, it doesn't have to be done now, and it could be done with a completely separate motion, as members from across the House explained.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the House, as you know, stands up in front of us every week. If he'd wanted a debate on changing the rules, on changing the system, he has that opportunity every single week, and I've yet to hear him say it until today when we are considering a live case. And in this case, the committee concluded, and I use their words, not mine, this was an egregious case of paid advocacy, that the Right Honourable Member for North Shropshire repeatedly used his privileged position to benefit 2 companies for whom he was a paid consultant, and that this has brought the House into disrepute.
It is the very definition of injustice that one should change the rules or the process at the very last moment, and to do so for a named individual, which is what the amendment does today. Retrospective legislation to favour or damage an individual because they are a friend or a foe is immoral and the polar opposite of the rule of law.
Anyway, yesterday MPs actually got the opportunity to vote on the motion and the amendments, and in the end, both the Leadsom amendment and the motion were adopted. This means that the Paterson case has effectively been put on ice. He hasn't been vindicated, but the motion on him specifically has been paused until the decision on the new committee is made. Even this won't be easy though, because both Labour and the SNP have said that they won't take part in what the SNP have described as a Tory kangaroo court, damaging the legitimacy of any decision made by the new committee. What the system will look like in the future is yet to be seen, but for the moment, MPs have voted that the sentence should be delayed and handled by the new committee, whatever that ends up looking like. But what do you think will happen next? Are you annoyed with the Conservatives for defending their own MP and delaying the process? Or are they right that more needs to be done to change the system to keep MPs accountable? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you want to get even more involved, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram for more updates and opportunities to let us know what you think. And as always, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.